Well, I think you're just lying to the audience right now. It was definitely because Mikey and I were just having a riff and we needed to separate us digitally and physically.
I speak to Scott through a proxy now.
Yeah. I'm a legal mediator, so any
was that?
point must be made from them to me to the other. And that's how we are going to go about on this podcast now. So that is why I'm in the middle. But I think it looks good, doesn't it?
I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense for you to be in the middle. You're the biggest head right here. I'll shrink
You want the
down.
most attention, and you always want to be the center of attention, and now you're
You
in the
guys
middle,
know-
the center. So, yes,
I
do
have
agree.
a small head. I always had to wear a small helmet in football, and it was actually pretty embarrassing. So that's why I like to be close to the camera. So my head appears bigger, therefore my brain bigger, and my takes better on the show.
As you can see, one of Nick's helmets is down there in the bottom right corner of Mikey's screen.
Nick.
Damn, Scott. That was funny as hell. Okay, damn. Speaking of funny as hell, this weekend, a comedian, Shane Gillis, was on College Game Day, and we're going to talk about all of this, but talking about the college football playoff, and we're going to touch on Shane Gillis's clip there going against Coach Saban. But let's just pop on into the college football playoff. It's the biggest news that's going on right now. Obviously, the first round. Can you guys see that? All right, there we go. It's up. For you audio listeners, I'm just showing the bracket of what we got. Obviously, moving on from the first round, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, and Notre Dame. A lot of conversation surrounding the CFP, this 12-team CFP, and a lot of complaints, Scott. We're hearing a lot of complaints about people thinking that certain teams were not deserving enough to be in the college football playoff and that all these first-round games were duds. How do you feel about that? What are your initial thoughts on the CFP?
You look at the Texas Clemson game. That actually turned out to be much better than I think most people anticipated because Clemson squeaked in with their ACC win. So I think that one was actually quite good. And then the Notre Dame Indiana game, as a fan, I was pretty stoked to see that one come out the way it did because it showed like, hey, Notre Dame might actually be legit. And Indiana, I mean, everybody's throwing around the word fraud, but I think that's just like, dude, it has nothing to do with being a fraud or not. It's like any given Sunday, any given Saturday. It's just like a lot of teams fell flat.
Okay, hold on, though. You think that there's no truth to the claims of Indiana being even just a tiny bit fraudulent?
Yeah. Look. Okay, there may be an element of it, right? Okay, you can look at strength of schedule, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they won many games. They didn't play Ohio State all that terribly, even though they lost by a couple scores. But like, if you looked at that game, it was a difference between a fumbled snap and a defensive gaffe.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying that. It's interesting because also the Indiana Notre Dame game ended up being the closest point differential out of all of the first round games. And I do feel like Indiana is kind of catching the most flack out of any of the teams here in the first round. Like, who I want to give flack to is Tennessee, especially, dude, the way that they came out. I'm going to pull this clip. These guys, I hate this so much. Okay. Tennessee coming out, obviously playing Ohio State on the road in the cold. Tennessee, more of a warm weather state. They came out and did this fake tough guy nonsense.
Oh, this is the dumbest. I hate
so
it when people do this. This is so stupid.
It's so stupid. Come on. Oh, we're so tough. Like, we're warming up with our shirts off in Ohio in December. Then you go ahead and get smacked. Like, what do you think about this, guy?
Well, I mean, it kind of cuts against being tough when you just Vaseline your body and like you might as well just wear a shirt at that point if you're going to put all that Vaseline on right there. See, look, he's glistening. I mean, this is it's just like a spectacle, right? They're trying to put on a show, act tough in an environment that they're not used to. And they're like, this has zero effect in my opinion. I don't know about you guys, but if I saw a team doing this, I would not think twice about it. I'd just be like, all right, you're an idiot. You're probably going to catch pneumonia or get a cold. Like,
it depends.
It has the inverse effect on me. If I see guys coming out and doing the no shirt warm up in cold weather, I just think it's just a pathetic, insecure show of trying to intimidate me. You think I'm going to think you have good technique as a football player because you took your shirt off? That's what you think?
It's true. It actually indicates bad judgment. Have you guys ever done the Vaseline thing in cold weather? Like put Vaseline on your arms or your body?
Dude, like I get it. A lot of people who do that are definitely putting layers on, or they're not ball carrier guys, right? So it's offensive lineman, D lineman, all that kind of stuff, so that they could go sleeveless and still be okay. But like, I've always heard that doesn't even work. Like it's just you're making yourself slippery.
I did that. Okay, hey, hold on. I believe it works. I did that. Holy
Placebo.
crap. Placebo effect is real. Okay. Holy Cross, Worcester, Massachusetts. Played Holy Cross, and it was up in like late November. And obviously, you know, I was one of those tough guys in college. Never wore sleeves in practice. Never wore sleeves in the game. I never did this bullshit where I came out with my shirt off. That's stupid. But, you know, as a linebacker in kind of the mid 2010s, this was sort of the thing he did. And I did put Vaseline on my arms, and I think it kept me warm in the snow. So
you are such a 2010 linebacker. You are listening to The Offspring in your room.
The Offspring? Like,
actually a really good band.
Give me some more.
Listen to my music.
Give me some more characteristics of a 2010s football player or linebacker, Mike. What else do you think that might?
If you had the cowboy collar, it would have been the complete trifecta of the archetypical 2010s linebacker. And if you just had a little bit more brain damage, you're right on the edge. Right on the cusp.
Just the perfect amount of brain damage to host this show.
Time will tell, Mikey. Time will
donated your brain to CTE studies. It's actually selfish that you didn't.
Hey, we still got time. Don't worry,
dude. Everyone this though, like if you really wanted to be tough, if Tennessee really wanted to be tough, they would take the flag and plant it in the O after this whole Ohio representative tried to make it a felony. Like they would be like, oh, okay, I don't even care about the law. That would have been a tougher move than this.
Dude, you should have designated like a walk-on that doesn't play to be the guy who just goes plant the flag.
The fall guy.
Yeah.
Dude, but also Ohio State, they, after winning this game, they were acting all like similarly to how Michigan acted after their win. Like they're out there like being very braggadocio, lighting cigars and talking shit to Tennessee. It's like, boys, you were just crying about your loss to Michigan, so much so that a legislator proposed a law to not hurt your feelings. And then you go and act like this, just like such hypocrisy.
Yeah. Everything, the whole spectacle around the actual game here was just like tough to watch, but the game ultimately ended up being tougher to watch, which sucks.
Yeah. But I don't know, dude. I think like a lot of people were complaining about them all. But let me throw up this tweet right here, this take. Tell me what you think. The 12-team college football playoff was never about more teams actually winning at all. It was about more teams having a chance to compete. Indiana got a chance. SMU got a chance. Clemson got a chance. Them losing is fine. It's about the opportunity. And in my opinion, I actually really like this. Like, we're not going to have 12 teams that are truly capable of winning the national championship, but we do have 12, 14 teams maybe that are deserving to be in a postseason type environment. What do you think about this?
No, I think it makes sense. I mean, you look at even NCAA basketball, it's the same thing. Like, at-large bids, people who didn't win their conference, all of that kind of stuff. The small schools who did win their conference, they have at least a shot, an opportunity to maybe have that upset any given day. And like that's the beauty of football is like I mentioned it before, any given Sunday, any given Saturday, like any team can lose. So like an SMU easily could have beat Penn State, if it were a different day. I mean, definitely not that one, but it's just like it's creating energy for a sport that needed another outlet for that energy. I think the bowl games had gotten so stale over time because like 99% of them didn't matter. So I think this is the step in the right direction. Do they have the formula down pat and proper right now? No, it's the first year. Like it was never going to be that case. Yeah. I think this makes sense. Granting opportunities to teams who otherwise might not have them in the chance that you could have those Cinderella story upsets.
Yeah. I think part of them going to this versus all the bowl games is all the big players sitting out bowl games and that trend of top players not participating in bowl games and risk of injury. Like you saw with Bryce Love, Bryce Love out of Stanford, he was projected like first, second round, and then decided to play in the bowl game towards ACL. Ended up going like fourth round. Like you hear those stories of those poor guys who ended up playing in these meaningless bowl games. But now at least these games have meaning.
Yeah, I remember back when Christian sat out when Joey was at Stanford and they were going to a bowl game. I don't remember what bowl game it was. It was not like a premier bowl game, and Christian decided to sit out to protect himself for the draft, and he got so much flack for that. And like now, look, it's such a different paradigm now. Everyone's like, yeah, of course, sit out if it's a meaningless bowl game. If you have this NFL projections, I want to ask you, which one of these quarterfinal games are you the most excited about? Going back to the bracket here, Texas, Arizona State, which is the Peach Bowl, Ohio State, Oregon. That's a rematch. That's the Rose Bowl. Fiesta Bowl, Penn State, Boise State, the Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame, and Georgia. Which one of these games, if you could attend one of them, Scott, where'd you go?
I mean, I got to go to the Notre Dame Georgia game. Down Sugar Bowl. I got to do that. Like, I'm most excited about that. I am cautiously optimistic about Notre Dame's improvement over the year and what they showed on Friday. And I think if they come with that same tenacity and that same sort of ground and pound game, I think they have a shot. If they get into a passing sort of shootout, I don't think they have the stamina and the depth to keep up with Georgia, but I have that slight hope, cautious optimism. But outside of that, I would say Ohio State, Oregon, like that's too good of a rematch to pass up. I mean, I think it's going to be much closer. It's the Rose Bowl. Like this is like the Big Ten, Pac-12 facing against one another as it was meant to be.
Yeah, actually, as it was meant to be. This is like these are previous matchups from their old conferences, basically. We got to go. Mike, did you go when Joey was playing in the Rose Bowl? Did you get to go to that? We all went to that, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was incredible. Like all of the fanfare.
Wait, who'd they play?
They played Iowa and they obliterated them. It was like a terrible football game. Stanford looked great. This is back when Stanford was super legit, like coming off the Jim Harbaugh era and then to the David Shaw era, and they were like top 5 in the country multiple years. But the Rose Bowl was awesome. And there's just so much history and tradition with that one. And now that, I mean, don't get me started, like talking about all the history and tradition of that old Pac-12 versus Big Ten championship game that they ruined. But now, we're actually kind of getting it back a little bit here. I always forget, where is the Sugar Bowl?
Atlanta.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. All right. Good. Indoors. Dude, I do not like the indoor college football games, though. Like,
I love them. They're like huge games. Typically huge games. So
they're so sterile. It's like that's the thing that's cool about college football is these outdoor crazy like that. Say what you want about kind of the boring score differential in the first round of the playoffs. Having home college football playoff games was so sick.
Oh yeah, dude. That they got that right. They got that right. And I think that's also a problem that's coming out in the product of the NFL is too many teams are going to the arena and it's eliminating an element of the game that is innate to what it is at its core.
Okay, but some of these big games, you want to see them in the dome. You want to see them almost playing in a vacuum where it's a completely fair circumstances and it's just all of their skill as a team versus the other skill. Like you want to eradicate these external variables for some of these like really big games, some of these semifinal games. So it's just the purity of their talent versus talent.
I know what you're saying, but it may like the indoor game. Like I like those kind of wild variables, like those domes games in the NFL. Sometimes is a different thing, but in college, it feels like I'm in a doctor's office waiting room. Like it's just sterile and quiet. And it's just, I like a little bit of mess in my football.
The dome traps the noise and all the fans, and it's so much louder. It just seems like such a bigger production.
Scott,
look, I'm gonna go. If we're talking about purity, I'm gonna go to the purity of the game, not the purity of the talent. That's what I want to see. I want to see somebody who's a team who knows how to win in all elements and has that dynamic edge that say another team doesn't. So like we're putting them in a vacuum. I think I don't think it does eliminate that factor and that need for a team to develop, like I said, all 3 phases of the game and get ready to play in any sort of environment. That's why I always think that whole saying, it's like, oh, I'd play you anywhere. I'd play you in the parking lot, like out on the concrete. Like that whole idea of football will automatically be removed if we just go, hey, let's go all dome. It's just for the fan experience. It's like, no, dude.
The thing is, we don't live life in a vacuum. We don't live life in a dome. We live life outside in the elements. You got all a bunch of bullshit going on. So that's why I like a little messy.
So the other side of it is the rating side. Okay. College football's a business, the playoffs is business. For these big games, people want to watch offensive shootouts. That's what people entertainment value the most. If you're playing these big games with great teams who have all these great weapons and you want to see them perform, but they're thrown into these snowy elements during semifinals and finals, and next thing you know, you're watching a game that's 6-3, 3-0, and a big part of the entertainment value of big games is stripped away.
Yeah, I hear you on that. But the NBA took that route, and we're seeing the product of that.
Okay, I agree with that part of it.
So there's an element. The football, because it doesn't run the same risk as the game of basketball in going that route. It still does to a certain degree. So like that's why I just want to say, like, keeping that element always is a self-correcting mechanism, as Nick was saying last week, to the game of football. And if you remove that, it's just who knows where it's going to go from there. It will literally turn into flag football.
Ooh. Okay. All right. So we got both of you
got me. I make that aspect of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you throw that little basketball insult in there, then that stings, because none of us want to have anything associated with what the NBA is doing. That's right. What, Mike? You're gonna love this. I don't know if you saw this.
Scott, right as I take it off the screen.
Right as you make us big. Okay, make us big though. Right after I show this one. After we do it. Okay. Here we go. This is gonna get us copyrighted for sure. You're welcome, audience. Sorry to our investors.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Here we go. Did you see this, Mike? Shane Gillis on College Game Day, and he is roasting the legendary Nick Saban. Here, I'm going to play this. It is 40 seconds. Here we go.
You called him a cheater earlier.
I was just joking around. I don't think the SEC paid players ever.
Period.
I'm joking. Is this not a fun show?
No.
Serious show?
Serious football.
Like Alabama Jones is very serious.
I'm not serious.
Get the whip, Indy.
I do believe in integrity. I always
hell
try to run the program that way so players had a better chance to be successful in life.
I agree.
We make more money in the NFL than any other school, 61 players in the league. That was how we cheated. We developed players. We recruited.
I'm so sorry.
I love when Shane Gillis apologizes. Okay, Scott, you can make us big. There we go. That's a good frame right there. I absolutely love when Shane Gillis does a reckless joke and then he doesn't land exactly how he thought, and then he apologizes for it and makes it 10 times funnier. That was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious, calling him Alabama Jones. And Nick Saban was clearly actually pretty pissed and offended at that because of the way that he responded. That's my interpretation. He took that and he had a very serious response to the joke. What do you guys think about this?
Dude, I love it. This is the element that I think even Pat McAfee's just bringing to ESPN is finally we're getting out of we're talking about sterile environments. Dude, let's get actual conversations and get these people answering these questions and these conversations that are going around outside in the fandom ad nauseum. I mean, this is a real thing. To say, oh, okay, some programs aren't paying players. Yeah, okay, by definition, you the organization isn't paying them, but we all know there are back channels to get certain recruits going to certain places. We've all experienced that.
Do you think before the NIL that was really
as
prominent as we like to say? You think so, Mike? Do you think so?
Absolutely, completely was. It was just under the table.
Yeah, it's all through back channels. You find it, for lack of a better term, it's like laundering money. You find different organizations, groups, churches, unfortunately, to funnel these monies to family members, maybe not directly to the individual, but it's extended family members or people who may be representatives of.
We would hear at Oregon State, even before NIL started, we'd hear stories of guys at Oregon getting cars or getting cash and stuff. The couple of years leading up to before NIL was actually legal.
Yeah.
I mean, if guys knew it was happening, with big recruits, 5-star recruits at bigger programs, and Nike and Oregon and Nike, all that money from Nike to Oregon, they have just money to blow.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, so you guys think
allegedly?
Do you think
cover our tracks here?
You think? Do you think a guy like Nick Saban then was aware of this, or it was separate from the actual football team? Because Saban here is pretty pissed at this accusation, albeit it's a joke, but it's also serious. Do you think that a guy like Saban would have been aware of that or part of that?
He's aware, but he's white gloves. It's like a guy who orders somebody to get killed and has the hitman do it. I didn't kill him. I just made the order.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay, I heard that this may be happening, but I don't need to know any details beyond that. Like, do not tell me, so I'm not liable for any of this. Like, I am unknowing to a T.
If that does come out, because a lot of times these type of things do come out a couple years later, there's some sort of investigation. Is that a big hit on his legacy if it comes out that the Alabama truly was paying players before the NIL, or does it not even matter because of everything that happens?
NIL washes it away. It doesn't matter anymore. This is all like, I'm not sitting here saying that Saban did this. Like, I'm just saying it was happening at large in college sports, regardless of just football. Like, it was happening in multiple different sports. So, like, I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying it did occur, whether or not it was his program or not.
It would be like how Lance Armstrong is the only one who's in trouble for blood doping when everybody was everybody's doing it. Even the thing with Saban, though, it doesn't hurt his legacy, even if NIL didn't become legal, because the culture that he built at Alabama, I think, negated all that, and what he did for college football negated all that.
True. Saban, I really respect the hell out of Saban. I do wish that he could have taken this joke a little bit better, or maybe kind of played with it. That was a bit of a stiff response. It's tough when you're trying to go toe to toe with like a world-class comedian like Shane Gillis.
But like the way he responded to this too is a little telling. It's like, oh, why so defensive? Why not just let this one roll off your back? Like,
laugh at it. Like, laugh at it. But he didn't laugh at it. He defended it. He was a little bit. He was just a little bit too defensive for me. But in general, I absolutely admire and respect Saban and what he's done. Like, you hear him talking about. We talk about this on the show. Hear him talk about some of his players just as men and people off the football field, and how much he cares for them and what they do in their life after Alabama. I think he's we do have some negative things to say about college football coaches on this show from time to time, but I think he's one that is authentic and cares about his players, even if he was paying them and cheating somehow, allegedly.
Yeah. The organization, not him, out of his pocket. No.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the purpose of comedians in society. Okay. It goes back to the court jester in medieval Europe. This is why you need comedians in society. They hold a mirror up to people in power through jokes.
Precisely why we have Mikey on this show, so he can hold the mirror up to Nick and I and show us
a hat with bells on it.
There you go, Mike. You get that in there, you court jester. You're the only one who can make jokes to the king without getting.
Do you guys want to see me juggle?
You can't juggle anywhere near as well as I juggle. You know that. Kidding me?
Nick's the juggler.
I have the most potential as a clown in our family and a magician. So
we'll talk about hand.
Yeah, I got a lot of tricks. All right, so first round of college football playoff in the books. Historic. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but it is what it is, and the quarterfinals are set to be kind of cool. Let's then transition to the National Football League. We keep talking about sterile, a team that plays indoors most of the time. Minnesota Vikings played in one of the most difficult environments to play in the NFL. In Seattle, playing the Seahawks, and they snuck away with a big road victory. And I just wanted to pop this up here because we've been talking about the Detroit Lions all year. They're having a historic season for their franchise. But Minnesota has quietly also been having a fantastic year. And here, we'll throw this up. Will you for me, Scott?
Yep.
They're 13-2. It's the best start since 1998. They beat Seattle for the first time since 2006. And they've got all of these things here, and they weren't really even this was supposed to be a bridge year for the Vikings. They signed Sam Darnold to a 1-year, $10 million contract, and he's playing fantastically. It also creates a very interesting situation for the Minnesota Vikings because they drafted J.J. McCarthy, right? Thinking that he was going to be the next man up for their organization. Obviously, he got hurt, but he was supposed to compete with Darnold for the starting spots and then possibly have, like a Michael Penix type situation where he would eventually take the starting spot a few games in. But Darnold has had this total resurgence that we've been talking about. I want to know, what is your thoughts? What do the Minnesota Vikings do after this year? Like, no matter what happens, they're going to make the playoffs here, even if they're one and done in the playoffs. What do they do about their quarterback situation? Do they do everything they can to retain Darnold and sign him to a long-term contract? Or do they stick with that kind of original plan and get ready for J.J. McCarthy?
No. No, not the latter. I mean, you got to do the former. You have to sign Sam for what he's done and how he's molded with O'Connell. Like, you cannot deny the success that they're having right here. I mean, you just named off all of those points, and like to pass on this would be so stupid. I mean, I'm even sitting here as a Browns fan looking at like, wow, we didn't even offer Joe Flacco anything before he walked out the door. And he got us. He literally got the Browns to the playoffs last year on his performance and everything. And like that's kind of what Sam Darnold's doing, but to a much higher degree. Like it makes more sense to me. And I know we're going to get a bunch of flack for this, but it's like, dude, if I were a GM, I would always go for experience as opposed to potential, right? And obviously, you can do that strategically. You can lean one way hard and still capture potential within the draft and all that stuff. But ultimately, like I wouldn't sell the farm for a guy who literally hasn't stepped foot on the field and is coming off of a major injury. Like I would rather him develop underneath somebody like Sam Darnold and their coach for a year or two before ever putting him out on the field. And we obviously look at that. Like the Green Bay Packers have been doing that for decades. Why aren't more teams trying to emulate that approach? And they have the perfect opportunity to do that right here.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And also, like JJ McCarthy, he wasn't one of the quarterbacks kind of in the same talent caliber coming out of this draft as like Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams. Like he was looked at as more of a kind of a project quarterback. And he didn't even throw that much in college at Michigan. Like he had the best coach possibly in college, who is now one of the best coaches in the NFL, Jim Harbaugh. And so he does seem like more of a project quarterback, but I am hearing some rumbles here of people saying that this is kind of a fluke season for Sam Darnold, or people saying that he started off hot and every week they thought, okay, it's finally going to end here. It's finally going to end. I'm going to throw this stat up here. Sam Darnold posted 112.3 passer rating versus Seattle, marking his 12th game of 100 passer rating this season. He now holds the NFL record for the most games with 100+ passer rating in a player's first season with a team since 1950. Like this just goes to show how much of the troubles that he had at those other organizations were environmental, and he was just waiting for an opportunity to blossom, like under a coach like Kevin O'Connell here. And I like this stat to me speaks absolute volumes. What kind of caliber or range of quarterback do you think he is in now, or he has proven himself to be in now in terms of contract? You're saying the Vikings got to sign him, right? Do you think that he's like, okay, is he getting like a Tua contract? Is he getting like a Baker Mayfield contract? Or a Kirk contract? Yeah. Where would you guys go?
He's definitely in that realm as opposed to say a Trevor Lawrence. I think
that was a mistake.
Yeah, it's seemingly a mistake as it's sitting right now. But like, I think other organizations are seeing how the resurgent quarterbacks, as you just mentioned right there, their deals, they are sizable to a certain extent, but they're not debilitating to your organization based off of like previous success or 1 year's success. Like, so I think the Vikings are going to probably approach it this way, or they should if they have a brain in their GM. So like that statistic, I did not know that, but 12 games over 100, that's pretty nuts. And like, talk about a fluke. Like a fluke is when you have maybe a 4-game stretch, right? 4 or 5-game stretch. But to do this 14 games in, 15 games in, like, dude, this isn't a fluke. He's actually developed to a certain point where you could trust him beyond a certain amount of doubt.
Well, dude, the interesting thing also is Sam Darnold aside is the situation that the Vikings are in now, where we mentioned it earlier that they are quite possibly in position to be the number 1 seed coming out of the NFC. They're going to play the Lions, I think, in a couple of weeks, and that's going to really determine who's going to be the first out of the NFC North and possibly the first in the NFC, obviously with the Eagles having a little bit of a woes now. Jalen Hurts getting hurt. Pun intended.
Good.
Mike?
Good,
right?
Yeah. Pun masters here. I don't do much puns.
Not really a punny guy.
It's beneath you.
It's a broader comedy.
It's not beneath me. Nothing's beneath me. I'm a sewer rat when it comes to
you got that right.
Hey, you're right. I'm the only one in our family who will eat leftovers out of the fridge.
So what? I didn't know this. You're that picky of an eater, Mikey. Come on.
I don't do leftovers.
No one in our family will do leftovers except me.
Oh, okay. So my younger brother Lou, he brought his girlfriend home for the first time this Christmas. She actually posed an interesting question. Now that we're on this topic,
okay,
if you go and you order a sub the night before from like Jersey Mike's, whatever, not Subway, but you go and get a sub, and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to eat this. I'm not all that hungry for a sub, and you put it in the fridge, and then you consume it the next day after heating it up. Is that considered a leftover?
Ooh,
yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that's a leftover. Leftover.
Anytime fridge overnight, doesn't matter what it is. Fridge overnight, that's leftover.
Even if there's not a single bite taken out of it.
Yeah. Because
what is it left over?
It changes the chemical balance of the meal. Once you're in the you're going in fridge overnight and then you're transferring to microwave. Now you're in leftover territory. Doesn't matter if you took a bite out of it or not.
That's interesting. No, okay, so I didn't even hear that the first time. So no bites were taken. It's a fresh sub.
Fresh sub.
This gets super complicated because like technically left was what you have left over from already eating it. Or if you look at it as like I have this left over from the previous day. So it kind of boils down to your definition of what the leftover is referring to. Is it referring to the actual meal or is it referring to the previous day?
Leftover is an unfinished meal in my book. That is what I say. So if you haven't started that meal, it's never left over.
Okay, Mike?
Is it a fresh sub once you put the ingredients on the bread? Or is it a fresh sub once you take the sub out of the wrapper?
Is it the same sub after you cook it a second time?
Now, this is the sports podcast that people want to hear. All right, so I would say, Scott, I do think that you can consider that a leftover, that sub. What kind of sub was it?
It's got to be a cold cuts. So let's just say a proper Italian.
Thank you.
Mayonnaise on it.
Yeah. Mayonnaise.
There's mayonnaise leftover.
That's the one place where I get a little like I'm hardcore. This is not a leftover, but at the same time, I'm like, man, the soggy bread, like that kind of falls into the category.
Okay, if there's no sauce on it when you put it in the fridge and you wait to put the sauce on until you bring it out of the microwave, it's not a leftover.
Mike, that takes a lot of.
If it marinates, if the sauce is marinating in the fridge and you get soggy bread, it's leaking into the meat. I think.
Mike, what kind of guy is going to order a sub?
It's chemically changed at this point.
He's going to order a sub and not get the sauce on it because he knows that he's not going to eat it till the next day. This takes way too much forethought.
Okay, type of guy like me who wants to be in charge of the distribution of sauce. You can't trust a guy behind the counter to distribute sauce on your sub. Okay, they are mechanical. There's no art to it. Okay? The individual knows the subjective amount of sauce to put on their sub.
Mike,
so,
you would
be really smart. You get your sub and I'll get the sauce on the side so I can control my distribution.
Oh,
you would be a great Jersey Mike's worker, Mike. You got a lot of potential there. Not Subway. That's beneath you. Jersey Mike's, right on brand.
Yeah. I love going to Jersey Mike's. And then when they ask my name, I go, my name is Mike. You're Mike? I can't tell you. I get so many free subs at Jersey Mike's. It's crazy.
Damn, I'm going to start saying my name is Mike at Jersey Mike's. Free tip from the No Warmup podcast. Lie about your name at Jersey Mike's for a potential free sub that you can put in the fridge and eat tomorrow. There we go. You know who I would trust? To properly distribute the sauce on my Subway sandwich or Jersey Mike's sandwich? Watch this transition. Joe Burrow. Okay? That was good, right? Is that good?
That's good.
Pretty good. Believe it or not, the Bengals still have playoff hopes alive. Let me pop this up here. This is a little bit crazy. A lot of what ifs have to happen. I'm going to share this video. It'll be like 60 seconds here. I'll stop it once we get the gist of it. Here we go. Okay, of how the Bengals could still make the playoffs.
Let's take a look. Well, it started Thursday night when the Chargers got that huge win over the Broncos. The Chargers all but in now in the 6th spot. And the Broncos, you could see sitting there right now, the 7th and final spot. Good position, nearly 90% chance. If the Broncos can just win one of their final
just roll the sleeves up, talk
over, the Broncos
data.
are in. But if Denver loses against Cincy and then Kansas City week 18 finishes 9-8, it's open to these other teams.
All right, you know what? I say it better than this guy. Screw it.
Look at the calculator guy.
Let's walk through this. What are we talking about?
So sorry. I did not know that this guy. I watched it earlier, and I was like earlier in the morning. I didn't realize how annoying he was. Okay,
this
but
is
basically,
the type of guy you get your football opinions from. This numbers guy.
And now whoever's listening to this podcast, is getting secondhand football opinions from us from getting it from this guy. So way to go. Good podcast we got. Just super double
Distilled
distilled.
opinions. My opinions have been pasteurized.
Totally distilled. But what the situation here, what it comes down to is the Bengals have to win out. Okay. They play the Broncos still on the schedule and then the Steelers on the schedule. The Broncos, they have to win out to secure theirs. Then they play obviously the Bengals and they also play the Chiefs. So it's very realistic that the Bengals playoff hopes, if they can beat the Broncos themselves, remain alive. And if that happens, can we please revisit what I brought up a couple weeks ago, and you guys laughed at me and you said, stupid, you're an idiot, and why would you even say that?
High school over again.
Yeah, it's like high school all over. Okay? That Joe Burrow deserves to be in the MVP conversation if the Bengals make the playoffs. I stand by that wholeheartedly. What do you think?
If they make the playoffs, I'd agree with you. But I don't have high hopes. And secondarily, it's not as though the Bills are not going to make the playoffs. So it's going to be a Mount Everest for him to climb in order to beat Josh Allen and what he's been producing so far.
But if he does that, it's even further supports the case. If he makes, I agree with Scott. If he makes the playoffs, then yes. But if he doesn't, because you were talking about MVP, it's about the team production as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So Josh Allen? You mean this guy? This Josh Allen? Hold on. Let me throw this up. God, this would time way better if I had it. Oh, this Josh Allen? Throw it up.
You went take from the top.
Oh, this Josh Allen who went 16 for 29 last week for 150 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Is that your MVP?
Guy can't have a bad game. Like, I mean,
you know who doesn't have any bad games? Joe Burrow.
He's got a lot of losses.
Maybe he's playing great. It's his teammates' fault.
You know what? Okay, sometimes it's selfish decisions. He's trying to get. Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, no. I get what you're saying.
Decisions of quarterbacks who are going for stats instead of just hit the check down, get the first down.
Yeah.
There's something there.
There's something.
I said a great point there.
We'll work on that, Mike. That's a good.
No, I'll build on it, Michael. I'll build on
it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Sometimes he tries to do too much. And tries to get that big chunk as opposed to just taking the analytical approach and going for the check down, going for the yards after catch as opposed to the yards in the air sort of passing.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. And so like we saw a clip of that. I don't know if we have that here in this slate of links, but like Josh threw a pretty bad pick, just directly to the dude in the end zone, the Patriots guy. So like everybody's saying, oh, this is your MVP. It's like, oh, what? An MVP has never thrown an interception before? Like,
not my MVP. What's Joe Burrow have? Like 4 picks?
Not my MVP.
Not my president, not my MVP. You don't give a crap? Okay. In America in 2024, you're allowed to just create your own reality. Okay. And so Joe Burrow is the MVP.
Crickets.
Crickets.
I really thought you guys were going to support me after that one, huh?
No.
I was going to say some comment about just like Rome, but I forget what year it fell.
The fall of Rome. It kind of depends. Like, there's a few different interpretations on when it fell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people even argue that certain countries it falls before you even recognize the empire. So you still live for 200 years after the empire falls. And you guys, if everyone really hammering home that Josh Allen is the unanimous MVP in the NFL, then I believe America has fallen. Okay?
I don't know if it's unanimous, but he's definitely a front runner, and he's got at least a neck's length ahead of anybody else running in the race. That's
because he's
opinion.
so tall.
Yeah,
yeah, that's why. Joe Burrow's a little bit shorter. At least Joe Burrow has a Batmobile. You think Josh Allen has one? I like Josh Allen. I do. Joe Burrow doesn't get enough credit because his team sucks this year, and the fact that they're still in the playoff conversation and could possibly make the playoffs, it's a miracle. He deserves a little bit more respect.
Okay, so what are you guys' thoughts on this? Like, he may not be in the MVP conversation, but he has been in the MVP conversation and won multiple MVPs over his career many times. Aaron Rodgers. Dude is getting so much flack this year for how they've performed. To a certain degree, rightfully so. Okay, fair. He hasn't played at the same level of an MVP level or been in that conversation this year. Okay. But at the same time, you look at him statistically, the dude is not turning the ball over. And that's just like part and parcel with the way in which Aaron Rodgers, that's why he's been so great, is he knows how to take care of the ball. Granted, he hasn't had as many touchdowns, but he's still produced to a certain extent and not put his team in jeopardizing situations to lose. So like, I always find it really interesting that people are just jumping on him and acting like he's the problem in New York when it's like, dude, you got so many holes in your boat. Like pointing to the one guy who actually doesn't jeopardize your team on a daily or on a weekly basis is absurd.
Dude, people love to hate on him. I'm with you there because like he does show veteran judgment. And actually like the last 4 games, he's actually played quite well. I think that they could I do think that they could actually figure something out in New York. Like if Woody Johnson would just be a little bit more stable, like if they would have just kept
Brick Johnson.
Oh, is that the son?
That's the kid. Yeah.
Who makes decisions off Madden ratings?
Dude.
Oh my gosh. Like that's.
Do you have any idea who my dad is? Walks into the office. He's got.
That's
I'm the CEO's son.
Coming hammered. That's what it seems like, and they're actually making like a lot of people were giving weight to that story. That's actually that there's truth to that.
Yeah,
that's
crazy. I mean, I bet you there's an element. I mean, the guy's it's his kid. He knows his kid's probably plugged into the whole conversation, and he's plugged into the sport probably more so than Johnson is. So like. Yeah, he's going to listen to him a little bit, but to utilize that as like a business decision is pretty wild. Like, come on, like Joe. If that's the case, Joe Shane over at the Giants should have listened to his kid and not gotten or drafted. Who did he say to draft?
Jake Daniels.
Jake Daniels.
Yeah, like hey, there's a good time to get done.
Sign him up.
Okay. Instead, you chose to have this chaos with Daniel Jones, and now you got Drew Lock starting. It's just a nightmare there. But dude, I think that like I'm actually curious to see what Aaron Rodgers does next year because he's he's coming off the Achilles injury. People put a lot of pressure on him. He's 41 years old, but he's actually increasing in performance as the season goes on. You look at like another guy, similar situation would be Kirk Cousins, who's also up there in age. He also coming off a recent Achilles injury, and he started off hot and has since declined. Aaron's at least moving in the right direction. They got talent, like he's got Devontae there, and I think they get the right coaching set up there and just a little bit of stability. I'm really curious what they can do next year if they keep him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like he just got his 499th touchdown, which is wild to say. Like that's insane. And the fact that it was to Devontae makes it all that much sweeter. I mean, it probably would make sense if he hit the 500th with him. But like, yeah, I don't think all hope is lost for that organization because they have the pieces. It's just like, I get the sense that Garrett Wilson being a young receiver, there seems to be an element of locker room dysfunction at this point in time because he's kind of approaching it with this diva mentality. And I think he's a little bit turned off or at least jealous with the connection and relationship that Rodgers has with Devontae. And I feel like it's just coming out more and more. So I don't know. They got the pieces. They just need to find the right, as you were saying, coaching staff and organizational call it calm.
Calm. Dude, will you throw this up, please? Garrett Wilson posted this. And speaking of Garrett Wilson, he threw this on his Instagram story.
Dude, so emo.
Super emo. And for you guys who are just listening, it says in incorrect grammar, you think I'm trying to be cool with that 5-yard catch? Absolutely no. I'm trying to take that MF to the crib, turn it into an explosive. Shake the whole squad / at least go out trying. You probably never understand. If you're mad about 2 yards, just know that's why we won't get along. 100 emoji. How this is so embarrassing to post something like this on your Instagram story. Like, is this not just like 14-year-old boy, 14-year-old girl type behavior?
This old man on the porch shaking his finger, but like a lot of dudes these days feel like they need to bring their emotions out on to the masses and talk about this. Like somebody got under his skin for sure.
Mike, this is like posting on your story, like in high school, people go, going through a tough time. Don't ask. What? Why'd you post on your story?
This is just desperate for attention. Yeah, I think there's some great, but like this is just like cancerous locker room type stuff. They got talented guys. Like there's potential there. I feel like there's always potential in those big market cities.
Yeah.
Granted, in New York, it's a little bit different with the Jets and the Giants because, like, the Giants are the more historically successful franchise and kind of the more premier franchise, but this is a New York sports team, capital of the world. Like, they can attract talent there, both on and off the field. And I don't know, man. It's just both of these New York teams are in shambles. But getting back to Aaron Rodgers, man, I think there's still some potential. Hey, did you watch the documentary about him on Netflix yet?
No, not yet. I've been stuck watching all of the Christmas shows with my daughter. I think I've seen The Grinch Stole Christmas about 37 times now.
Okay, nice.
Well, you tell your daughter.
Tell your daughter you want to watch.
Daddy's got to work now.
Scott, what do you care more about, your daughter or the show? Okay. Okay. I don't care that it's Christmas.
Gotta do research.
We are talking heads on a sports show. You understand? Pivoting to a different NFL team, the Lions. Okay, they did something super interesting this year or this week. Sorry, this year as well. But
This year too.
yeah, this year, the Detroit Lions with genius nerd offensive coordinator Ben Johnson pulled off this little number this weekend against the Bears. Scott, I am getting ready. Hold on, here we go.
Ben Johnson's got Mary Poppins bag here in terms of how many tricks and he has up his sleeve. It's just like an endless pool that he can pull from to bring this stuff out. But I think this one, I forgot who it was. It might have been Jahmyr Gibbs, but he came out and said that, this might have actually been an idea that they had taken from the Packers. The Packers did this to the Bears either this year or last year. So they kind of developed and built upon it to do the same to the Bears. They just can't catch a break, these guys.
Dude, everyone just wants to just smash up on the Chicago Bears, man. Like this is right now. Every other team in this division is playoff bound, and then you got the Bears. You got just 3 fantastic seasons, and then the Bears.
We talked about it last week, though, and we have to bring it up because it has to do with the Bears. We talked about who would be the head coach that you would choose for the Bears going into next season. And I brought up Mike Vrabel, right?
Yep.
Now it's just ironic that they played the Lions this week because obviously Ben Johnson has been at the top of that list for taking a head coaching job for the past 2 years, because he's just this offensive mastermind, right? But it's interesting that all the Bears are just like, all the Bears franchise and fans want him, right? Ben Johnson, maybe not somebody like a Vrabel who's defensive minded, because Eberflus was also defensive minded and a culture guy. I mean, was he good at building culture? No, clearly. Vrabel, vastly different individual, vastly different dude, played at a very high level, won Super Bowls. So like to discount him on that is wildly stupid in my estimation. But people are like, Ben Johnson. Dude, more offensive coordinators have failed than have succeeded when taking head coaching jobs. So like to assume this goes back to my point about potential, like to assume that you're going to go and grab somebody who just has this potential or could possibly bring about wins for your organization just because they're experiencing success in their current level is a risk that you're running. And I think for an organization that has missed so often and so many times throughout my entire life, it makes more sense to go for the route that the Lions did, right? The route that the Chargers did, right?
Yes.
So getting somebody who played, getting somebody who can build culture and bring the proper minds to the organization to handle all of that stuff, as opposed to trying to go for like the offensive guru. Because Ben Johnson also had to develop under somebody who supported his creativity. Like to assume that Ben Johnson was always this Ben Johnson is false. Like he never was. Like he had to develop over the past 2 years to get to this point. So I don't know. That's just my diatribe here.
I think there's a lot to that. I mean, because we have Ben Johnson is kind of looked at as, a little bit more cerebral, not necessarily the culture guy there. Like Dan Campbell is the culture guy. He sets the culture and then he lets his wizard on offense do his thing. Like it's silly that we keep thinking, just because this guy is incredible at offense and offensive play calling, play design, that he can set and create a culture for an organization that desperately needs it.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? I heard a rumor or what is the word? Proposition. Dan Lanning from Oregon to be the Chicago Bears head coach.
Even
What
worse.
are you? Okay.
Even worse. Like,
Okay, but hold on. Let me say, I do think that Dan Lanning is a culture guy. Do you not?
yeah, to a certain extent, but it still goes back to my argumentation about going for somebody who has experience versus somebody who has just pure potential. Dan Lanning has never coached in the NFL. He's never coached this caliber of player, this type of man, this type of team, this type of organization. Like, it's a vastly different game from going from the college ranks to the NFL. And we've seen even the greats of college fail at going to the next level. So it's like, that's why.
Well, don't you think these leaps from college to NFL are going to be easier now that they're dealing with NIL and money and it's becoming more professional? Like, it's different. It's a different leap now than it was just a few years ago.
Maybe to a certain extent, but I don't think you're ever going to be able to emulate it at that younger age bracket. I think it's just you're dealing with people who understand life at a much higher degree than
some of
kids.
them. Some of these guys in the NFL never. We were just looking at what's his name's Instagram account.
On average,
acting like he's 14. So on average, yeah, you're right. You're right though. But there are.
Yeah. You remember Luke, right? We talked to Luke.
Since we're on the Lions right now in the NFC North, I wanted to throw this up because we always are hearing about these high school kids or everyone claiming they run a 4.4. Like, apparently 45% of and then apparently 45% of the high school recruits run a 4.4. Now look at this speed here, like from Jameson Williams on the line. This is legit like 4.3 speed. You just see how fast he blows by NFL DBs. Like, that's incredible, legit 4.3 speed. I just hate it so much. Everyone and their dad claiming that they run a 4.4.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. But what's so cool about this is like 4.5 is blazing fast. Like, that is insane speed in and of itself. But when you start ticking below that 4.5 down into the 4.4s, low 4.4s, and then you get into 4.3s, dude, it's hard to describe unless you see it and you stand there flat-footed. Hopefully not flat-footed as defender, but you know what I mean. Like, when you see that running by you and you're trying to stick with it, it's just so much different. It's like a car, dude, to a certain extent. So yeah, it's so funny seeing quarterback, couch quarterbacks just talking about like, oh, like why didn't the defender do this? It's like, dude, the guy's running a 4.29.
There's also like, I played safety my sophomore year in college, and this just gives me like PTSD flashback of receivers just running by me. Cause dude, I was really just a linebacker playing safety. We had a couple older linebackers who were starting. So they put me at safety just like get on the field. And I bit on every single play action. And like these type of routes would just fly on by me. Mike, you actually did run a legitimate 4.4, didn't you?
I did at Pro Day. 32 teams were there to see Luke. And
who's this guy?
And I stole the show, if you will. No, I did. I ran 4.44.
Dude, that's pretty dang solid. What was your fastest, Nick?
I trained for 3 weeks. I could get anyone under a 4.5. My training, my speed regimen, okay, I could get anybody.
This should be a segment.
Real fast.
You got to get Nick and I underneath
Mike, if you buy my 8-week program.
Okay, Rex Kwando. Mike, can you do it with a guy who has 2 torn MCLs and never really got
Yes,
hurt?
Nick, I've been telling you for years I can get you there.
First in my day-to-day life,
rehab and then 2 weeks of speed training and you're there.
I'm honestly, in my day-to-day life, I'm actually good with like 4.6 speed. It's like 4.6, 4.7. I don't need to be under 4.5 for like my day-to-day.
Look, if you want this podcast to be where you want it to be, you have to be a 4.5 guy.
Scott, do you think we can do it?
I think so. A little bit of training.
Speed translates.
Speed translates everything. What's the fastest you ever ran, Scott?
I think I radared out at like 4.69, but I was usually hitting like low 4.7s.
Yeah, well, you're also bench pressing 480 pounds.
Oh, and weighed 240.
Oh yeah, when I got into college, that went from 4.7 to maybe a 4.9.
Oh, dude, how? Yeah, because you put on 30 more pounds,
dude. Just ate myself out of contention.
Now that's a 2010 linebacker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I did have a cowboy collar.
You had a cowboy collar, dude.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Oh, dude, I had so many stingers. Like my left pinky and ring finger are just still like tingly numb to this day. I have so.
That's awesome.
I never got a stinger. What do they like?
Bro,
How do they feel? It just goes numb?
No. It's like fire first. And then
you never got a stinger, Nick?
Dude.
I hit properly with my chest and face mask. I don't throw my shoulder in there.
I like to throw my shoulder. Never wrap up.
You guys got loose labrums.
No, it was always just, dude, it was always like the H-backs who would lower their head into your shoulder, even if you were trying to wrap up and just trying to obliterate your clavicle. That's where I would get them.
My clavicle actually did obliterate, and we could throw up the X-ray here. And then I got surgery at a sort of a sketchy German hospital where they gave me no pain medicine, and my clavicle was just hanging out for like 5 days.
Oh, so you walked into the hospital with a surgery coupon. I have a half-off surgery, and it reflected that.
Yeah, so I've got a real nice scar right here. Good memories, though. That's what Scott. What you do there? That's you go with the Olay. You know, as I really like decreased my weight later on in my career. Like Mikey, by the time you came out here in Germany, I was playing linebacker at like 186 pounds, and then I had to just do the Olay. I became a bull fighter.
Nick, I don't think you heard me. I ate my way out of the 4.7, so I couldn't Olay quick enough.
No, dude, you could still within like a 1 meter rate or like quickness. Like the Olay is not necessarily about like your straight line speed or anything. You can still be a little chunky and Olay.
I wouldn't say I was chunky. I lifted my way out of it. Okay, I'll
okay, beefed up. Yeah, okay, not chunky. Body fat percentage was still low. He was jacked. So good. It's like 240. All right. There we have it. It's Christmas, guys. Okay.
Yes.
It's time for Christmas. We will not be doing a show on Christmas because that is blasphemous, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. It is a time of celebration.
Yeah.
Little baby Jesus.
Little baby Jesus. Happy birthday.
8 ounce.
Baby Jesus. So we won't have an episode on Wednesday, but we might have a little segment from Mikey if he can get that done today. Guys, Mike, a lot of pressure. The people are a lot of pressure.
Get your hopes down. It's pretty experimental.
Good. Experimental content. But then we will be back on Friday, right, Scott?
Yeah. Yep. We'll be back Friday. So hopefully we can rest up, enjoy the celebrations. Merry Christmas to you guys.
Mike, what is it? What's the house vibe like now that I'm gone? I left yesterday.
Everyone's kind of like a weightlessness around. Everyone's happy and chipper, and people are getting along. It's interesting how quickly a dynamic can change in a house.
Well, that's because
we miss you. Boy, do we miss you.
You don't understand how to follow a good plan and schedule, which I like to implement throughout the house. And so I actually feel sorry for you now that you're just going to have these loose leaf days with no Nick Alfieri dictatorial structure.
The Germans
led by my ADD planning.
Yeah. Oh, Scott, Mikey's ADD planning. It's more of a squiggly line. Mine's a straight line. There we go. All right, Scott, I know you're traveling. Safe travels. I'm about to drive down to the Alps for some Christmas time. Mike, tell everyone at home I say hi, okay?
Don't know what it means.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time.
All right, peace.